Hey buddies, as we heave another week onto the trash pile of history and prepare to unbox a gleaming new tomorrow, it's time for another Friday Start Select Spectacular, that is to say, Super Start Select.
Today's show contains such treats as Steam for Mobile and a Witcher 2 release date, plus a little guide to Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, wherein Johnny tells you everything you wanted to know about the upcoming fantasy action RPG, but were too afraid to ask.
Also, our deepest regrets and most profound apologies to anyone trying to watch this on YouTube on a mobile. We're led to believe it's broken, but we've got a crack team of internet video scientists hard at work on the problem.
Of course, if you're trying to watch on YouTube on a mobile and it's still broken, you won't be hearing this apology. So if the rest of you could pass that on, that'd be super. Thanks.
The first piece of swag to fall off the back of the news wagon is a mobile version of Steam, that is to say the digital gaming service from the creators of Portal, Team Fortress, Counter-Strike and Half-Life 3? Yes, Valve has released an in-beta version of Steam for iOS and Android devices. It's still in testing phase at the moment, but the full version is slated to allow gamers to chat with Steam buddies, view screenshots and user-generated content, browse community groups and profiles, read news, and keep up to date with any Steam sales and offers. In fact, as far as we can tell, it lets you do just about everything except play games. If you want to check it out for yourself, just head over to tinyurl.com/iSteam for Apple fans and tinyurl.com/SteamyDroids for the Android collective.
Next up, The Witcher 2 for Xbox 360 has gotten itself a release date. It'll be out and witching it up on April 17th. The original PC version came out in May last year, but now the developer, CD Projekt, has whipped up a version optimised for console, which includes a handful of new quests, characters, in-game movies and cinematics. You can catch a little glimpse of the amazing new intro cinematic on screen right now. To see the whole thing, hit up the URL below.
One last thing, Capcom has suffered a minor derp in the publishing of its latest 3DS game. Dan Su, editor of bitmob.com, tweeted out a picture of his copy of Resident Evil Revelaitons? Yeah, you're seeing that right, and the typo has made it into the first batch of game boxes on the production line. Ouch.
Capcom released a statement to Kotaku saying, among other things, "We apologise for the mistake, which will be corrected for subsequent productions of the game. We are working on a solution to provide affected customers with the correct packaging."
Working on a solution? We're no scientists.
I'm a scientist.
But the solution is presumably, spell it right. Don't worry, Capcom, we've gone ahead and solved it for you on the cheap. If we just do this, and then a bit of this, and then just cross that, pow! Game fix success.
They don't pay you enough.
Not even close. Admittedly, it's an easy mistake to make. In other news, PlayStation Vitas are still on sale, as is Sonic Generations and Operaton Flashpoint Red River. And Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Compilation.
What do you know about fantasy RPG Kingdoms of Amalur? Not much? Fret not. Johnny Chiodini has you covered.
Hey, Beardy, what even is an Amalur?
Well, I'll tell you, Seb. Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, out in early February, is a brand new single-player action RPG with 5 regions, 4 races and 3 class trees comprised of 22 abilities per tree, creating a destiny system which feeds directly into the action-heavy combat system. A bit too much all at once? Here, let us break it down for you. Video games. They're a thing that exists. Tekken Tag Tournament 2, to pick an example at random, is one of them. Fantasy is also a thing. Lord of the Rings is a good example of that. Combine video games and fantasy and you get something like Lord of the Rings Online. Another thing that exists is Ken Rolston. He is a notable designer of tabletop role-playing games and also video games. And he's a little bit bonkers. Crossing with video games, you get PBA Tour Bowling 2001. Crossing with fantasy, and there's something rotten in the state of Kislev. Hello, Warhammer! Mash all 3 together, however, and something magic happens. The Elder Scrolls 3, for instance. Or the Elder Scrolls 4. Or, wait for it, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. See? Now you're getting it. Renowned for his work on the Elder Scrolls series, Ken Rolston is one of the best known people working in that busy intersection between fantasy and video games. But it seems even the most celebrated genre shapers can get tired of certain tropes. In Ken's case, it was typical RPG combat, as he told our very own Brendan Sinclair.
I want them to be thrashing around in their seats with a controller and jiggling and having fun, which is not, by the way, a characteristic of most role-playing game combat experiences. They tend to be slow-paced and less than satisfying.
So, while we've seen a whole slew of action games with RPG elements come forth recently, making it a format we're all fairly comfortable with, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning has the unenviable task of introducing itself as an RPG with action elements. Not quite sure of the difference? Well, let us explain what bits of the game are familiar, and then we can get to the bits that are scary and new, okay? In Kingdoms of Amalur, much like Peter Molyneux's Fable series, you play as the voiceless hero in a vibrant world, in this instance one named Amalur. The game takes place against the backdrop of a war between the young races, humans and whatnot, versus the elder race, the immortal Tuatha. There's a whole lot of aesthetic similarities to massively multiplayer fantasy RPG World of Warcraft and to the Fable games, but rather unlike the Fable series, you enter the world as, well, a corpse. You're also boxed about the ears by a narrator who sounds exactly like Galadriel from Lord of the Rings, just in case you didn't know you're about to play a fantasy game.
From the beginning, we were wrong, and only now, well into the second decade of the conflict, have we begun to understand the mistakes we have made.
Happily, dead old you is then brought back to life by the mysterious Well of Souls, after which you set about trying to find some answers. How did you die, for instance? Why did you get brought back? Just who are you, anyway? That's the key mystery of the game, but you get to answer half of that question for yourself right away, by shaping your character. You choose between 4 different races, male or female, with each race offering different perks like additional aptitude for standard RPG activities, like blacksmithing, alchemy, bartering, picking locks, you get the idea. You also choose a patron god for an extra bonus. This, fantasy fans, is a little like the birth signs bit in earlier Elder Scrolls games. From there, it's off a questing you go, and it's largely role-playing business as usual. Completing quests gets you experience points, you use experience points to level up. Simple. Now, it should be clear by now that Amalur is a role-playing game, and where would any RPG be without skill trees? Leveling up involves a skill menu, improving your aptitude for the different activities like lockpicking, as we mentioned earlier. However, don't go in expecting leveling up to be a one-shot affair like in Skyrim. Like in many an old-school RPG, you then find yourself with an abilities menu, allowing you to expand on the amount of stuff you can do during combat. This in itself is split into 3 different subsections. These menus are designed to allow you to shape the character you want to control. Cards also play a part in shaping your character, helping determine your destiny. Counter to old-school RPG tradition, there are no rigidly defined classes, though destinies and talent trees do lean toward different character types. If you've spent time with RPGs before, you'll probably find yourself gearing your character toward a familiar setup. The game is also generous with unlock points as you level up, so it's easy to upgrade all 3 combat styles as you go, or progress more rapidly in one particular style should you decide it's the one for you. You can also equip different destinies as you go, making for a pretty flexible character. This is useful for the game's combat system, which, for the purposes of this feature, we will refer to as the scary new bit. Combat in Kingdoms of Amalur will be pretty familiar to you if you've played an action game before, you know, because it's an action combat system. You've got 2 buttons, one for your primary weapon and one for your secondary. If you like straight up combat, there are swords, daggers, bows and the like. For the mages among you, there's magic aplenty, based around the mighty elemental pillars of fire, ice and lightning. In addition, you have access to power attacks which you can use on the fly. Charge up your fate meter and you can also enter reckoning mode, which is kind of a bullet time kill fest, culminating in a quick time like event which has the potential to earn you 100 XP in one beautiful bloody blow. Now, during combat you may need to use a potion or two, and these are mapped to the directional pad, letting you take a swig mid-swing of your sword. All this amounts to a system that lets you fight with your whole arsenal without constantly pausing to access a submenu and equip different gear. And that's the key to the whole mystery, really. What is Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning? It's an RPG with a buttload of menus, but you don't have to access any of them when you're busy killing dudes. In the words of combat design Joe Kadara, that makes it
an open world action RPG with the best combat that you've ever seen in an RPG.
Or in the words of game design luminary Ken, it's...
That's cool.
So what do you think? Has Ken Rolston again proven to be the beardy saviour of RPGs? Or are you going to miss scrolling through inventory menus as you kill your way across the kingdom? Let us know in the comments, or hey, fire us a message on Twitter. All the relevant info should be on screen now. Play us out, Ken.
Hi. Woo. Hi. Hi. Woo. Hi.
Oh my god.
Rolston?
Hi. Woo. Hi. Hi. Woo. Hi.
Oh my god.
Rolston? Ken Rolston? Ken Rolston?
Hearing me talk, total waste of time with this stuff. Out. Cool. Gibber. Cool. Out. Cool. Gibber.
Rolston?
RPG. Piece of candy.
Rolston?
RPG. Piece of candy. I did that by accident. I did that by accident. I'll gibber. Did that by accident. I did that by accident. I'll gibber.
Ken Rolston?
Going on a rampage.
Ken Rolston?
Candy.
Ken Rolston?
Going on a rampage.
Ken Rolston?
Candy.
I particularly like noises like satisfying. Yes. Thrashing combat. Guns. Satisfying. Yes. Thrashing combat. Fun.
As we draw a line under the first month of this year, we reflect on the literature committed to the pages of history by none other than the handsome men and women of the Start Select Viewing Committee. That's you. You guys truly are the poets of this generation.
Like wordsmith Codester 4 in reference to the appearance of Mr. Kennedy in the Resident Evil franchise. LMAO, Leon with the poser anime hair, I hope RE6 will be split screen again. I do appreciate playing games with my girl instead of passing the controller. I also hope that I get to shoot Mr. President.
Well, in the interest of not placing the show any higher up the CIA's watch list, I'm going to go ahead and confirm that GameSpot does not necessarily share the views of its users. All hail our glorious president, may death come swiftly to his enemies.
While Norman69 got all serious on us, tell us, Norman, what can we infer from the Resident Evil 6 trailer? Well, from what I've seen in the RE6 trailer, it looks as though it fulfills what I was wanting from the follow-up to RE5, a return to the slower-paced, horror-based gameplay where you're dangerously outnumbered and low on ammunition, alongside the more bombastic, explosive sections where you're fighting alongside allies with superior firepower, a la Resi 5.
But user Endorba is concerned that Resident Evil could be heading for an identity crisis. We are calling this fusion dramatic horror. I'm not really sure that trying to appease everyone while developing a game has ever had a good result. Capcom took a series that had been selling well as survival horror games for a decade and turned it into an action shooter with Resident Evil 5. Some new people coming on board with the series liked the changes, while most of the older fans didn't. Trying to include both gameplay styles seems like it would create a game confused with its own identity and end up alienating players in both camps. Never before has someone voiced my exact feelings on a franchise so eloquently. Endorb, I hereby grant you my highest honour, the nod of approval.
On the same theme, user Samster2 also feels the flavour of Resident Evil could be changing. Whilst RE5 was really fun, it just wasn't scary at all because it was built around co-op. I love co-op, but hopefully with Resi 6 they'll keep the scariness and add a separate co-op mode. 6 players, probably some wave survival. Also, the Resi 5 level progression was pretty much the same as Resi 4. Village, marshy area, lake with a monster, industrial warehouse bit with gas mask people and miniguns. Resi 6 is looking more original, which is good.
Last week, Johnny brought us a little feature on the whats and whys of new intellectual property in the games industry. Why you know IP, he asked. GameSpot user Key answers. I fully understand why publishers want surefire hits this late in the console cycle, but we are getting some new IPs soon. The Last of Us, Journey, The Last Guardian, Sorcery, I Am Alive, and a few others. Most of the new IPs will arrive at the launch of the next set of consoles.
While sickly GameSpot user DeEllist101 sees a problem from both sides. That has been my biggest problem with this gen. Almost every game feels like something I played a million times before, and more dumbed down too. But I can't blame the game makers, it's a business and they are here to make money, not to go bankrupt.
That's true. We've seen many a company go under with that business model. And finally, user register noise observes. So, Start Select Presenter crew consists of a handful of English, a Scots and an Irish guy, but no Welsh. Get a Welsh member and you guys would be like the Planeteers of the games journalism world. Go Planet!
Shotgun not hard!
Shotgun! Oh. And the auto cue's out of words, which means I get to stop making the noises with my mouth hole. And GameSpot lets me live for another 24 hours.
We'll be back in the better, brighter world of the future that Monday will surely be. Here's to hover cars. We'll see you then. Kingdoms of
So this is
Amalur,
new
what do you know
game.
about it?
Yeah.
Nothing? Neither do
Hey.
we. Here's Johnny.
Freestyling.
We can't freestyle it.
Now we are really bad. Thundercats. Oh wait, I'll wait. That's what I meant to do.
Where are you going from?
Get a Welsh member.
Yeah.
I'm bringing.
Get a Welsh member.
Let's not take that out of context.
Welshmember.com. Right.
That's not funny. Get a Welsh.
Hey,
Told you I could punch through a wall.
you totally can punch through that wall. If you'd like to see more Start Select shows, then click up here.
Or if you want to see anything else from GameSpot, just click the button up here.
And for a third unknown thing, click our faces for something else. See you next time.
We out. Back to our trailers.